Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. I'm Haley Panagakis with Connect, and I'd like to thank you for joining us today, tuning in to Track and Leverage Meeting Activity and Spend Data for Maximum Success with Robyn Mietkiewicz. Before we get started, I just want to point out a few housekeeping notes on the platform. You can type in your questions for Robyn in the comment box on the left-hand side of your screen. We'd like this to be an interactive session, so please send in your questions throughout the webinar. If she doesn't get to it, don't worry, we have a Q&A at the end as well. We'd also love your feedback as well, so if you want to send us any comments, we would love that in the comment box as well. A recorded version of this session will be available on demand on our websites, where you can find additional on-demand webinars for any of you who need those last-minute credit hours before the CMP tests. I know that those are coming up. And just so you know, you are able to watch our sessions on demand and still receive credits. So if you have any sessions you watched on demand, reach out to me. I'd love to get you your certificates. For anyone joining us live today, that's all of you right now, we'll be sending out an email tomorrow evening with your certificate of attendance, so be on the lookout for that. And if for any of our future viewers, those are our on-demand viewers, if you're watching this on demand, not live, please email me directly at hpanagakis@connectmeetings.com. There's a link on our website, and I will send along your certificate of attendance. I'm going to share more information about our upcoming webinars at the end of the program, but we're going to go ahead and get started. I'd like to thank Providence Warwick Convention and Visitors Bureau for sponsoring today's session. Here to say a few words about Providence as a meetings destination is Vice President of Sales and Services, Tom Reel. Welcome, Tom.
Thanks, Haley. Good afternoon, everybody. As Haley said, I'm Tom Reel, Vice President of Sales and Service at the Providence Warwick Convention and Visitors Bureau, and it's my pleasure to introduce this topic today because for the past 2 years, our organization has made great strides in providing meeting spend data to our customers. Like you, we believe that knowledge is power, and in today's competitive market, planners need to know their potential positive impact on a hotel, convention center, or an entire destination. Since 2015, the Providence Warwick Convention and Visitors Bureau has been engaged with our parent organization, DMAI, or Destination Marketing Association International, as well as Tourism Economics to measure the direct spend impact of groups meeting within our destination. By providing this information to our customers as part of our post-con reporting, we deliver factual, proven data to strengthen your buying power. As buyers in today's highly compressed marketplace, the spend data, combined with room pickup pace, delivers a comprehensive picture of your beneficial effect on a community. And again, that's the definition of buying power. So now for my commercial. Affordable and walkable and known for our culinary and arts prowess, Providence is the ideal location for your next event. To learn more about our great destination here in southern New England, I invite you to please visit our website at www.goprovidence.com. Click on the Meetings tab at the top of the page. If you'd like to reach out to me directly for more information on our economic impact measurement process, click on the staff button on the site and feel free to call or email me. I'd be delighted to meet you. Thank you very much for your time today. Enjoyed the webinar, and back to you, Haley. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tom, and thank you again to Providence Warwick CBB for sponsoring today. We really appreciate it. So before I introduce Robyn, I have someone else I'd like to introduce. I'd like to welcome my coworker, Yolanda Mays, Director of Special Projects with Connect, and she is here to share a little bit about the many events and education opportunities that we have going on this year. So welcome, Yolanda.
Thank you, Haley. Hello, everybody. Happy Hump Day. I have two events that I'm going to speak to you about briefly. The first event is Connect New York, which will be May 2nd, 2017, 10 on the Park in Manhattan this year. It is actually one of our smaller national shows where it is focusing on the corporate association and specialty market segments. Again, it is a national show, so you will meet with suppliers from all over. And then the second show is our Connect show, which I will refer to that as Connect Mega. It is going to focus on the corporate association, specialty, sports, and expo markets, August 21st through the 23rd, and that one is at the Convention Center in New Orleans. Both of these events are our reverse style trade show where you will meet with suppliers during those appointments. We have great education sessions that are also accredited. We also have great keynote speakers and opportunities for you to mingle and unwind with the different networking opportunities that we offer. They are $200 to register, and remember that you will get that registration feedback at the end of your appointments. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to reach out to our director of the Hosted by Our team, Kristen Francis, or our VP of the Hosted by Our team, Michael Vada. Thank you, Haley.
Thank you, Yolanda, and make note of all of the events that we have going on throughout the year. Yolanda covered just a couple, so we have a ton. We have something for you. Definitely check out our website, connectmeetings.com/events, and we can get you more information. And I'm going to send a link to Michael Vada and Kristen Francis's emails once we get started. So without further ado, it's my pleasure to introduce today's speaker, Robyn Mietkiewicz. Robyn is Senior Director of Global Meeting Services at Meeting Sites Resource. She has been with the MSR team since 2004 and serves on the MSR Executive Committee, which focuses on a multitude of company strategic initiatives. Robyn has earned the prestigious CMP and CMM certifications. She is a frequent speaker at industry events and contributes articles to many industry trade publications on a regular basis. She holds a bachelor's degree from California State University, Fullerton, with a major in communications and emphasis in hospitality and tourism. Robyn is a past president of the MPI Orange County chapter and has served as chair of an MPI International Task Force. As president, she was responsible for overseeing a 19-member board and a 400-member chapter. Robyn received the 2014 MPI Rise Award for Member of the Year and was also recognized by the CIC in 2013 with a Pace Setters Award. Robyn, welcome, and thank you so much for sharing with us today.
Thank you, Haley, and it's great to be here with everyone today. We're going to examine a hot topic, how to track and leverage meeting activity and spend for maximum success. Now, regardless of what side of the table you're on or role in the meeting management process, managing meeting data really impacts us all. The general question is, what data is needed and how do I use it to assure success? So real quickly, our goals for today are, we're going to first start with industry issues and trends that really impact the overall meeting process. We'll review meeting value and ROI, which is return on investment, the different measurements and components, and how you could define and measure and report success to your stakeholders. We'll examine how to track meeting activity and really use that information to drive strategic decisions. We'll talk about how to communicate real meeting value to your senior management and your stakeholders. And then finally, how you can use technology to really drive these decisions. So I always like to start with an overview of what's happening in our industry and how that's going to impact negotiations, cost savings, and the contract process. So when it comes to spend on meetings, overall spend is really expected to remain flat. To reduce expenses, many organizations are focusing on more local and regional meetings. And they're reducing the number of large meetings that really can increase travel expenses. And it's just harder to find a location in a compressed market. Hotel inventory. Hotel supply or sleeping room availability is up. There's an increase in hotel openings in 2016, and we're expecting more in 2017. Now, planners are in the driver's seat in those markets. As an example, in Houston, we had the greatest increase of new supply in 2016, combined with the oil market decline. So planners really have greater pricing power to negotiate. GDP growth is predicted to be slightly lower in 2017. Planners can take advantage of leveraging this for lower increases in costs year over year during negotiations, and that really reduces the cost per attendee in rooms and food and beverage. Now, hotels continue to refocus on revenue management. They're looking at everything from your rooms to space ratio, arrival and departure pattern, first in or last in of laying the base, compression in the hotel as well as in their destination, the booking window, the concessions and how that really directly affects the room rate. Those are all factors they're using to determine a yes or a no on your RFP. The planners should really make sure that they know what rates are being driven on in that market based on those factors. And then on the flip side, while hotels are focused on revenue management, planners are really focusing on strategic meetings management, tracking their spend, and being able to have intelligent conversations with the hotel. So that means they really understand the leverage of their meeting and that they're, as I always say, armed and dangerous. Other trends, we're seeing greatly increased hotel buy and sell activity. In a strong seller's market, there's been record profitability since 2010. Obviously, significant mergers and acquisitions on both the independent hotels and chains as well. Most recently, we had some big mergers like Starwood and Marriott, and we'll start to feel the effects of that this year. There's going to be more in 2017, and this will reduce competition, ultimately affecting rates and costs to planners. I know most recently Associated Luxury Hotels purchased destination hotels, and there's more and more, and we'll continue to see that. Now, business travel actually is flat, but domestic leisure travel is expected to increase in 2017, and that domestic leisure travel will be one of the keys to refueling the U.S. travel industry, since business travel is really slowing to a stagnant level. Food and beverage prices, this is something to really be thinking about. They're expected to continue to rise due to increased production prices, as well as the continued growth of dietary requests from your attendees. That's obviously going to increase the cost to the venue because they now have to order many different types of food. They have to train their staff, and they have to have more staff on hand because it takes more staff to produce that many different types of food choices. Leisure travelers. So what that means is basically 40% of business travelers are extending for leisure purposes. And the good news is they typically extend at the hotel that they stayed at for business, so for the meeting they attended. So as planners, you can really track this trend with your groups and leverage the buying power of your attendees, and you can fill in shoulder dates to your meeting. Safety and security, gosh, with everything that's happening in the world, even with today, with what's happened in London recently, it's going to be a continued increase to budgets, and really making sure you have the manpower and the technology to ensure that your staff and attendees are protected not only on-site but in transit. So in 1991, ROI, which is return on investment, that was introduced to the meetings industry. I know a lot of us weren't even in the industry at the time, but this really was launched by Meeting Professionals International as they introduced their ROI business model. So what ROI is it's defined as the total benefits minus the total cost to get a net benefit divided by the cost of the meeting, and then you multiply this by 100 to obtain a percentage. And I know, years later, we're still confused on how to use this model and how to communicate value to our stakeholders. The challenge here is any formula that has calculations based on quantitative metrics and then qualitative metrics as well. So it's something to be thinking about. And I'll explain how to understand this as we continue. There's really been a big shift in validating meeting value in ROI, and that big shift is strategic meetings management. Now, strategic meetings management was launched by the Global Business Travel Association in 2004. And this initiative really gained traction during the recession, and it's here to stay. GBTA defines strategic meetings management as a disciplined approach to managing enterprise-wide meetings and events. So, if you have multiple planners, admins, marketing, whoever's planning meetings, getting your arms around that, having processes and suppliers in place, a strategic goal and vision, and it's going to deliver value for you in the form of quantitative savings, risk mitigation, and service quality. Now, keep in mind it's not just about dollar signs. In addition to cost savings, there are a lot of value components that I'll be breaking down today. So I like this graphic because it shows you the essential elements of how to have a strategic meetings management plan. So basically, you want to have registration of a meeting or event, an approval process, so anybody can't just start a meeting without having it approved. You want to have sourcing and procurement in place, planning and execution, payment and expense reconciliation, data analysis and reporting, and then technology is really the piece that ties all of these together. And that's really flanked by stakeholder management and strategy, as you'll see in the diagram. Now, as the industry really starts to adopt a more customized approach to strategic meetings management, the real difference is that it's going to be developed in phases, and it's going to be based on the priorities and evolving needs within your organization. There's not a one-size-fits-all solution. And the reason strategic meetings management is important is because a carefully planned and managed SMM program can save your organization about 12 to 20% annually. So as I mentioned, it's not just about dollar signs. There's a lot of other benefits. And the key to success is really understanding your stakeholders' goals and objectives and creating specific metrics to define, measure, and report success. If your management finds or perceives gaps, that's a call to action and a huge opportunity. This is a great opportunity for you to really advance your career. So ROI, some trends that are really reshaping our thinking. Recent survey data shows that from the meeting manager's perspective, 49% of planners are feeling pressure to enhance meeting results, measurable metrics, and ROI. And 73% of corporate and association planners are being tasked to demonstrate cost savings. Now, on the flip side, over 50% of CEOs feel their organization is not getting maximum ROI from their events, and over 40% of CFOs are not satisfied with their spend management. So this really reaffirms the need to have a business plan approach to meeting management, to have preferred suppliers in place, and really to have strong partnerships with your hotel partners. So these are basically the 4 areas of meeting management methods. A centralized department where you have, one meeting and event department responsible for enterprise-wide meetings and events where they're really able to execute and manage their spend. There's decentralized, which I know a lot of organizations are faced with. They have full and part-time planners, and they have, many that just plan and manage their own meetings, maybe not always reporting risk reduction and cost savings. There's clustered, where there's key groups of meeting managers within a department that support internal and external planners and track the activity. And then there's obviously outsourced, where you use a third party to help you with that. So whether your responsibilities are enterprise-wide, within a department or division, or even just a cluster of meetings, strategic meetings management is important to you. So as you'll see in this diagram, this graphic really breaks down who's typically responsible for the meeting planning function. And you'll see it's actually 38% in the C-suite and 25% in sales and marketing. Now, this headline I saw the other day, it says, "Data is the new oil." And this was in a major trade publication discussing how corporate and association planning teams can be more successful in deriving value and communicating ROI to stakeholders. So here's how some of the key meeting activity data to collect. Here's what you want to look at before you implement a strategic meetings management plan. First, you want to understand what your stakeholders' vision and expectations are. Obviously, with your C-suite, whether it's your CFO, CEO, they all have different objectives and goals for each meeting. You want to know who your internal and external meeting sponsors are and their goals and objectives. Understand how meetings are generated and what the approval process is. Look at who plans and supports the meeting management process, both full-time and part-time. How many meetings are you planning annually as an organization? Look at the different categories of your meetings and the number of attendees. You want to gather information on your budgets and cost analysis, and then your total spend by category. And much of this information can be gathered with the help of your internal stakeholders and some of your hotel partners. Other areas to look at, you want to start tracking your spend by hotel, by chain, by brand, so you know with the click of a button how much you're spending at any specific hotel if you do repeat business, or even with the chain. That information is really valuable. Sometimes we have those really great programs that everybody wants, and then there's other times where it's space intensive. But when you can communicate the overall value of business that your organization is bringing to a specific hotel chain, that's really your leverage and negotiating power. You want to analyze your hotel contract risk reduction and cost containment measures. One of the things I always recommend is getting a contract in place to create consistency for your organization. Negotiating some preferred supplier agreements in place. Having a meetings management process and procedure in place so it's clear for everybody that's overseeing programs at your organization. Looking at payment and expense reconciliation. Having technology to really manage the data. And then looking at meeting metrics to define your success, as well as post-meeting evaluations and surveys. And again, as I mentioned, it's not a one-size-fits-all solution, so really identify the priorities based on your organization, looking at what your stakeholder goals and objectives are. So, here's some of the key measurement options to be considering in this value-centric environment that we really work in today. Not everything has a dollar sign, so ROI really focuses on quantitative data, basically cost savings, but there's other areas to report value. So you can look at ROO, which is return on objectives. So understanding what the objectives are before the meeting happens, and then communicating after the meeting has actualized how those objectives were achieved. And again, understanding the different objectives for each of your stakeholders because they might each have different goals. For example, you look at your CEO and your CFO, your Chief Financial Officer, they're looking at different things. And then there's return on event. So ROO and ROE is qualitative data. So return on event is just understanding the overall attendee experience, their takeaways, different learning outcomes, and it's being able to report on all of these areas and not just the cost savings. So as you saw earlier in the surveys, 73% of corporate planners are being tasked to demonstrate cost savings for their meetings. Whether you're being tasked to do this or now, this is going to become more and more important. So in the next slide, we'll get into some examples of how to do that. And it's really, communicating the value to your stakeholders and tracking that data by meeting, being able to report that quarterly or annually. And what a great career booster for you during your annual review to be able to say, here's how much money I'm saving the organization. And not, with specific dollar signs, things you'd actually back up at a real number, not just saying, oh, I'm saving you money. So when it comes to cost savings, it's really important to have credible metrics to define and measure your success. You always want to be able to defend your math, so never using, inflated numbers like rack rates, which nobody ever pays. You want to use, your the average group rate in house, or you could, if you had a higher room rate that you negotiated down, you could use that to communicate savings. So here's an example of what a cost savings report looks like. I know it's a little small, but I'll break it out for you. Basically, this is a report I prepare in Excel once each meeting has been countersigned. And you can also capture the savings on site because a lot of times there's things that you negotiate once you're actually at the program. So capture all of that information and have this information available. So you can share it with your stakeholders to really validate your success and prove your existence and your worth. But basically in this diagram, you'll see with the first one, run-of-house sleeping rooms, we used the original rate quoted, which was $199 in this example, and we got it down to $185. That comes out to a $14 savings per room. So you can easily calculate out the savings there by multiplying that by your total run-of-house block. If you had any complimentary suites or upgrades at the group rate, find out the real value of that from your hotel partner. Discounted staff rooms, I input the discounted rate versus my run-of-house rate to capture the savings there. If you had a comp room policy like 1 per 40, 1 per 45, you can easily calculate out how many complimentary rooms that comes out to by dividing it by your total block. Multiply that by your run-of-house rate, and you have your savings there. Guest room internet access, if the hotel was actually charging for that, I would definitely include it. If it was always, complimentary for everybody, that's not really a savings. So ask the hotel what they would have charged for that. Looking at all of your concessions, I basically send my list of concessions from the contract to my hotel partner, and I ask them to give me a real value for each of the items. Whether you had, complimentary welcome amenities, complimentary room for a site inspection, everything, capture that and prepare it into a report. The following document I'm sharing with you on the screen is a consolidated meeting activity, spend, and savings report. And this is another report that you could create and share with your stakeholders. It helps them understand what's happening with meetings enterprise-wide from the start and end date, the name of the meeting, where the program was held, your contracted versus your actual pickup, and your percentage of room pickup. So really good data to have at your fingertips. And then as I mentioned earlier, you want to be capturing your spend by hotel, by chain, by brand. It's really important to track this data and to leverage it during the negotiations process to really maximize value-based outcomes. This is a report that I shared with one of our customers, but it breaks down the sleeping room spend by hotel chain. You could add in food and beverage spend, any of the categories that are important for you. Now, sleeping rooms is the hotel's biggest profit center at about 77% gross profit, followed by food and beverage at about 38% gross profit. So you really want to know your spend in these categories and have it available to use during the negotiations process for future programs. You also want to look at areas like your ancillary spend, so not only audiovisual, business center, if you have spouses attending and you have heavy spa, golf, if you have a lot of spend in the food and beverage outlets, all of that data should be tracked. I always say information is power, and this really applies to hotel negotiations. So the big picture goals for hotel contracts are to have contract integrity, added meeting value, cost savings, and risk reduction and cost containment. So to assure maximum risk reduction and cost containment, I always recommend having a custom contract ready for signature. It can be consistency for your organization and address everything from value-added concessions, hotel fees, surcharges, performance clauses, and then any liability language that your company uses that's important for you. Look at all of the contract requirements and really make sure it's all on the table at one time so your hotel partner can see all the requests and make appropriate counter offers. And I know a lot of people use contract addendums, and if you are using that, I would always recommend just making sure there's no conflicting language. I've seen a lot of times in the past where planners have attached their addendum and there could be 2 indemnification or force majeure clauses, so that could definitely be a conflict. If you don't want to have your own custom contract, at least incorporate your language into the hotel's contract. Make sure nothing's conflicting, and just be sure you're analyzing all of those areas. So in the CMM landscape, hotel contract risk mitigation is really an important metric. So I want to review some of the key risk reduction and cost containment components that you want to address. Obviously, the key is to have open and honest communications at all phases and to really work together as partners with your hotel contacts. So when it comes to sleeping room rates, you always want to have a rate integrity process in place. You want to look at value-added concessions and prioritize your needs versus your wants for each meeting. I always include an adjustment for published rates clause in all of my contracts, and it guarantees I have the best group rate in-house even after the contract's signed. And that's actually a really important clause that I know a lot of people do not include. The reason that's important is you don't want people looking at the hotel's website and finding lower rates than your group rate. So I always, include that clause. If the hotel is offering a lower rate, they have to match that rate for my group. And I check the hotel's website because there's a lot of times where I've seen rates drop and then they're going to book around the block. So those are areas you want to look at. And then you could even add language in saying that regardless of rate paid, that you get credit for everybody on your registered participants list. That's another way to protect yourself. Looking at attrition, I always guarantee a percentage of my room block. I never want an expiration date on my attrition clause. I base damages on profit versus revenue, and I mentioned earlier the average profit margin on sleeping rooms is about 77% gross profit. Cancellation as well, I like to base that on profit versus revenue. Basically, I don't want to pay more if my meeting cancels versus actualizes. And then I want to have damages on a sliding scale. So, if you're canceling a year out, it's going to be a lot less versus 30 days out. Another area you want to address is if the hotel cancels on you. And I bet if you look at a lot of your past hotel contracts, it says nothing along the lines of what would happen to your group or your organization if the hotel canceled on you. And that's something that you need to be thinking about because hotels are canceling for more profitable business. Your contract should be your go-to place. You should be able to pull your contract at any time for any situation, and it should address clearly what will happen. Otherwise, you have no protection. Looking at your food and beverage, I always negotiate attrition with my food and beverage just like I do with my sleeping rooms. And I know a lot of people don't do that, but the reason why is if your attendance decreases, obviously that's going to affect your food and beverage spend. Hotel fees and surcharges. You want to make sure everything is very clearly addressed in the contract, and you want to include specific language that nothing can be added after the contract's been signed. Otherwise, you can show up on site and have a big surprise. As an example, I've seen hotels that didn't have resort fees, and then they've added it. I've seen hotels like, for example, Vegas, where they weren't charging for parking, and now they are. Or I've seen even new surcharges that I've never even heard of, like an energy surcharge. So you want to be looking at all of those things and make sure you're aware that everything's addressed in your contract and negotiated and that there's not going to be any surprises. A lot of hotels are adding a multitude of hotel fees and surcharges. In 2015, it was at $2.47 billion in the U.S. alone, and in 2016, it was at $2.55 billion. So that's really an area that you want to focus on that can often be overlooked, but that's a huge way that hotels are recouping costs, and it could be a big surprise to you and to your budget. Resell and audit. A lot of planners include a resale clause, but not an audit clause. So you want to make sure that you address resale. that if the hotel does sell to another group or another entity, even a business traveler, that you get credit for pickup purposes, or you get credit for resale purposes. So basically, they're not charging you when they've also sold that same room to somebody else. You want to be able to have an audit process, for example, with attrition, that you capture any rooms outside of the block regardless of rate paid, and that should be addressed in the contract, or they do not have to do that. Looking at relocation, I like to include a relocation clause versus a no-walk clause, because a lot of states have what's called innkeeper laws, and they can't, evict somebody staying at their hotel. So that no-walk clause is not going to help you if they have no choice but to walk one of your attendees, because they can't kick out another guest at the hotel. And then you also want to note in your relocation clause that you get credit for the room at the alternate hotel, that as soon as the room's available at your headquarter hotel, that they're brought back and upgraded or offered a welcome amenity, that you can be in charge as the planner of who's walked, so it's not one of your VIPs, to really ensure that, it's really clearly addressed. Construction and remodeling, I'm always surprised at how many hotel contracts I see that don't address this. So you want to make sure that that's clearly addressed, because you don't want to show up on site and have, the lobby under construction, all the restaurants where there's no food and beverage open. I mean, there could be some big surprises, jackhammering during your meeting. Just make sure that it's clearly addressed and that there's a course of action as well. And if the hotel knows ahead of time that you're, notified, so you can kind of make plans around that. Unauthorized changes, I always include verbiage that nothing can be changed without written approval, and that key word there is written. Meeting and event space, I always negotiate complimentary, and that the space is confirmed, not tentative, so I don't have any surprises with rooms that I really don't like or might not work for my group. It's fair that if your group size dramatically decreases in attendance, that you would have a conversation with the hotel about moving to a smaller room, and that's totally fair. Force majeure, you want to make sure everything's clearly addressed. Make sure it's not just acts of God. You want to address everything, like curtailment of transportation, World Health Organization alerts, if there's a health advisory like Zika or whatever else could be coming up that we're not even thinking about right now. So make sure you address everything. Breach by hotel, basically the goal here is to make sure that the contract's fair. Obviously the contract always outlines how you'll perform as the organization, but you want to also outline how the hotel will perform so it's fair for both parties. And then, of course, there's all sorts of other legal department language that you want to address, like indemnification and successors and assigns and so forth. Continuing on with this, I always look at a mitigated damages versus a liquidated damages clause, because that basically says the hotel will work with me to resell. I like to include a rebook clause in my contracts that guarantee I can use a portion of any cancellation fees paid towards a future meeting. And I think that's a win-win for both sides, because then you're going to bring future business to that hotel. Again, with all of your legal department language, I think I already addressed that. So in today's environment, I really think you need to think like a hotel revenue manager. So you want to have an open conversation with your hotel partner and understand all facets of the RFP. Areas to look at are your arrival and departure pattern. Typically, Sunday, Mondays across the board are ideal for the hotels. So if your pattern arrival is like on a Tuesday, if you have the ability to shift, I would definitely consider that. I would look at the pricing options for a few different arrival patterns. Or talk to the hotel. If I shift by 1 day or 2 days, oftentimes that can mean like a 20% savings on the group rate. So ask those questions. I know a lot of times your stakeholders might say that the dates aren't flexible, but you never know. So just have some data available and present the different cost savings and of course, your original dates requested. Rooms to space ratio. Calculate your square footage needed on the heaviest day. If you are a space-intensive group, I would look at ways to get creative with the space. If you can reuse your general session for the mailroom or breakout. Even asking the hotel partner, what have you seen? How can we make this work? I've had RFPs that were turned down, and it was hotels that we really wanted, so we went back to them, and they said, we had too much space needed that they couldn't accommodate. And so I said, well, give me some ideas on how we can make this work. And they came back with something that actually worked really well. So ask them for some ideas. And, look for groups where they're citywide, where they might have rooms only at the hotels. And then, obviously, all that space is available, so you might have more flexibility there. Or ask the hotel, what dates might you be able to accommodate a group that's space intensive? Understand your group food and beverage revenue. If I always have the hotel give me their food and beverage minimum, and then I look at what I'm actually able to spend. If my spend is more than what their requirement is, I use that as leverage. Understand the season over your dates, if it's high, shoulder, or off season. Hotels like to have 3 years history typically, and they are sharing data with each other, so they're looking at your pickup. That's something you want to be aware of. Potential incremental revenue, you want to be looking at things if you have sponsored events. Even if you're not paying for something, that's still revenue you're bringing to the hotel as a result of your meeting. So use that as part of your communication package, as part of the value that you're bringing to that hotel. Know all of your spend categories and have data available. If you want to negotiate, you have to have something to stand on. So that's why this data and everything I'm talking about today is so important. And then, like I said, hotels are looking at the risk of your account, your ability to pick up versus what you contracted. They're analyzing what other groups are in-house over your dates and what their revenue contribution is. Now, I really think having technology is important to be able to wrap your arms around this. To have to manually put this together would just take forever. And there's times where you need reports and data with a click of a button, and you don't want to have to be manually putting things together. As planners, we're really sitting on mounds of business intelligence, and you want to be able to have that data at your fingertips. So technology can really tie all of these pieces together, from the sourcing process, having a custom contract, registration and housing, social media and your mobile app, managing travel, helping to consolidate your meetings and leverage your spend, having management and financial reports to validate your success, from your cost savings to risk mitigation. It helps you with your strategic meetings management planning components, helps you manage your suppliers and vendors, expense and payment reconciliation and your budget, and then it can help you with that post-meeting evaluation from ROI, ROE, and ROO reporting capabilities. Technology really drives processes. It creates consistency. It helps minimize data entry, and it makes it a lot more efficient and accurate. It integrates all of the meeting components that I just mentioned and can generate reports for you much faster. It helps leverage your spend and negotiations, and it helps you drive strategic decisions. Now, we all read the trade publications, and they often feature commentary on the adversarial effect of a seller's market. And I really believe that negotiation success can be achieved when planners have an action plan for each meeting, and then that they have open and honest communications with your suppliers and hotel partners. So here's some recent corporate and association planner survey results. Planner survey challenges, obviously, increased meeting and hotel support costs, which I could definitely attest to. Hotel contract terms are becoming a lot more stringent. Obviously, added hotel fees and surcharges, a lot of new ones popping up. We're definitely feeling increased expectations by senior management for cost savings and ROI. And, really just being able to communicate overall value of your meeting beyond cost savings to show, survey results, doing pre and post results so you have something to measure against. On the flip side, some of the challenges that hoteliers are facing today, just the sheer volume of RFPs that they're receiving is just at an all-time high. Unfortunately, they receive a lot of spam or incomplete RFPs, which makes it difficult to really analyze it and respond. They have unrealistic expectations for meeting space, so if you have flexibility, do note that. And just a note or comment for our hotel partners listening in the webinar, my preference is that you always you always accept an RFP, and if you require flexibility, just let me know and say, I can't accommodate these dates, but here's what I can accommodate, or I can accommodate the space as outlined, but if you are a little bit flexible, here's what I can do. So really offer some solutions. Because you never know, even when somebody says, we're not flexible at all, there's a lot of times where that whole city might be sold out to a citywide or whatever it might be, but sometimes you'd rather have options because you might just have to go back anyways. And if you absolutely have to turn down the RFP, state the specific reason why, not just no availability. I need to know why. Is there a citywide? What is the citywide? Or are you sold out over these dates? Or whatever it might be, having that information is important. Because you have to realize that the planners have to communicate to their stakeholders the reason why, and they have to be able to actually have data and information available and not just say the answer is no. And then hoteliers really want to see your meeting history and spend data. So let's talk about how to enhance the art of a deal. And I think when buyers and sellers carefully evaluate your meeting goals and objectives, your key components, and you have flexibility points within your RFP, that will really enhance the overall process. You want to have a strategic RFP in place, understand all of your revenue contributions by category. You want to have specific metrics to define and measure success, and then have a process to track data and create meeting value reporting. So much like hoteliers, planners are responsible to many stakeholders, and I think this graphic breaks down some of the key planners and their role and expectations, from your C-suite to procurement, travel, a meetings department and marketing, HR, IT, legal. There's a lot of different stakeholders involved. Each department might have different goals and objectives, so really important to be clear on who your stakeholders are, what their different objectives are for the meeting, and how to communicate that those things were achieved once the meeting is actualized. And the reason why is because managing meeting stakeholder expectations is one of our highest priorities. You really need to think like the C-suite and have business conversations and really think at the same level that they are so you can communicate value. So I think strategic meetings management, SMM, really can meet hotel revenue management. So from the planner's perspective, strategic meetings management delivers measurable value to your stakeholders. For the hoteliers, revenue management maximizes your revenue and profitability. And for the planners, you really need to understand the revenue management criteria that we addressed earlier. For both parties, you want to assess the total revenue and account value and the variables over those meeting dates, what's happening over that set of dates in the hotel and in that destination. You want to place an emphasis on overall goals and objectives and determine your flex points on both sides. Have open and honest communications and really work together. And then, there's times where you've got to know your walkaway points, and that has to happen from time to time. So here are my 6 steps to value-based negotiations. First and foremost, have a strategic RFP in place. Assess your leverage for each meeting. Document all of your revenue contributions. Include a master account statement clause in your contract that breaks out to the hotel how you want the different accounts broken out. So you want one for sleeping rooms, one for food and beverage, one for audiovisual, and whatever other categories are important to you. That should be noted in the contract. That makes it easier for you to reconcile, and then it also gives you the data you need for future forecasting and for negotiations. Focus on added meeting value, cost savings, and contract risk reduction and mitigation. Track your meeting history and spend by category. Know your spend by hotel, by chain, by brand. And from your countersigned contract, be creating the cost savings risk reduction report. If that's not something you're tasked with doing now, take the initiative. That's going to become more and more important, and that's a great career booster for you. In today's environment, hoteliers are really focused on hotel revenue management because that drives profitability. So as planners, you have to focus on strategic meetings management to show meeting value on your ends. I think focusing on partnerships is just so important. And really, as I wrap up today, I want to share with you my hotel contract top 10 tips. I've included my contact information on the screen. So if you want to just shoot me an email, I'd be happy to send that out to you along with some other resources. And I'm going to open it up for questions now. Haley, you want to go ahead and open for questions?
Yeah, Robyn, we had a couple of questions while you were talking. Lori in Marietta, Georgia asked, do you have a certain number of rooms for the published rate clause that you use?
I typically say, we usually don't do anything less than 20 total rooms because anything less than that's not a group rate. But if you have 20 rooms or more, I would include it every single time. There's no rule when to not include it. But anything less than that's usually going to catering. And it's not typically considered group.
We also had Christy from Concordville ask what the source was for the figure that hotels make 77% revenue on sleeping rooms.
So 77% is the average of both hotel chains and independents. Some hotels do have a higher profit margin, and I will ask that question. If they give me some pushback, I'll do 80 or 85%. But no hotel is making 100% profit on the sleeping rooms. So that's something you definitely want to be thinking about. And that information came from North Star.
We also had someone ask how you negotiate complementary room space. They noted that it's pure profit for hotels and it can be unyielding.
That's right. So meeting space is pure profit for the hotels. And a lot of times they're trying to call it setup fees now too, which, I mean, I can understand for an outside event, but for an indoor event, I always negotiate a complimentary. So the way you negotiate that is you have to be armed and dangerous. You have to know your leverage. So here's an example. If the hotel said their food and beverages minimum requirement is $10,000 and you know you're willing to spend $20,000, I'll go back to the hotel and I'll say, what if I could increase my food and beverage to $15,000? Will you waive, meeting room rental fees? So I look at different avenues like that.
Well, we have any other questions come in? Keep them coming in, guys. We have several people asking about the getting a copy of the slide deck and what we talked about before the session. You said that you were going to send out a copy for them after the session.
Send me an email. My email is on the screen, and I'll be getting everything out by the end of the week. Just give me a couple of days since I'm sure I'll have a lot of emails.
Okay, great. We have Lauren from Baltimore, and she's wondering what types of programs are available to compile an SMMP.
There's actually a lot of programs out there. The one I use is Meeting Evolution because I think that one does the full event life cycle, but there's a lot of them out there. That's the one that I'm really familiar with. And I could send you, I think it's just meetingevolution.net. A lot of the things I talked about, some planners are doing, parts of this, but it's really important to take the initiative. And really, this is a great career booster, as I mentioned to you. Whether you're not being asked to do this or not, this is a great way to really enhance your career, to be able to show that value, to prove your worth, to show your stakeholders that you're thinking the same way as them, and to have an intelligent business conversation as well. Stuff is imperative.
Well, Robyn, it looks like that's all the questions we have coming in. If you had anything else you wanted to share.
I think that's everything. Just feel free to email me and I'll get out some different resources to you that I know will be helpful, and I know you'll like the hotel contract top 10 tips that I'll send out.
Yes, I think that's going to be very helpful for everyone watching today. Thank you so much, Robyn, for speaking today. We greatly appreciate it.
Thank you. And just if anybody has any questions you think of, next couple of weeks, I'm always available and happy to be a resource for you. So feel free to email me or contact me anytime, even with just simple questions here or there. Always happy to help.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, Robyn. We appreciate it. I've got a question coming in about how we can get documentation for CE credits. Guys, just reach out to me. We are going to have an email going out tomorrow for anyone watching live today. But again, for anyone watching on demand, that's anyone watching in the future, just shoot me an email. It's going to be on your screen now. It's hpanagakis@connectmeetings.com. I'd be happy to get that to you as well. If you do have any issues, if you're watching live today and don't get it tomorrow, shoot me an email. Happy to just send that directly to you. So everyone, I'd like to thank you for joining us today. And just an FYI, you can learn more about Connect's past and upcoming webinars listed on your screen on our websites. We'd love for you to watch those on demand for more CE credits. Like I said, for those watching live today, you'll see an email tomorrow with your certificate of attendance for the session. If you're watching on demand, again, email me. It's not going to come to you automatically. If you have any questions about anything, about our webinars or anything, please email me at hpanagakis@connectmeetings.com, and I'll be happy to assist you. We hope that you will join us again on April 18th at 2 p.m. Eastern for How to Maximize Networking Opportunities with one of our Connect speakers, Michael J. Lyons, and sponsored by the Providence Warwick Convention Visitors Bureau. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Have a great day.